Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Mylene Garcia. I work for the City of Oakland. I'm the city's online engagement manager.
And I'm Karen Jan. I'm currently Chief Strategy Officer at Neighborly, which is a fintech, civic tech company. But before I took on this role this past February, I was in the city of Oakland, specifically in the city attorney's office, where I got to work on a lot of fun projects, including design thinking. And we can go into kind of our... So this story actually begins about 3 years ago. As Karen is well aware, we hit some hard times in the city of Oakland during the last recession. What started off as a few furlough days a year grew to 20, which is almost the equivalent of one working month. We knew that citizen service requests had increased, even though our budget had decreased. And people were being laid off or asked to take retirement. So it was a trying time inside City Hall, and we got together and decided, how can we innovate? There's a lot of people here with a lot of great energy who take their jobs very seriously and just weren't being given the tools to kind of think outside the box. Around 2012, I stumbled upon a fellowship that somebody had kind of shown me called the Leading by Design Fellowship at the California College of Arts. CCA is here in Oakland, but they also have a campus in San Francisco. And I started taking a fellowship where my project was City Hall. It was bureaucracy and thinking about ways that we could redesign bureaucracy to be more efficient and use tools that weren't currently in our toolkit. Around that same time, I had lunch with then council member Libby Schaff, and we were just talking about different projects we were working on, and how cool would it be to empower that entrepreneurial bureaucrat, and we really need this space inside City Hall to do that. And we started talking about it. She's like, I love that idea. We coined the phrase Civic Design Lab. And it was also around that same time we put together a proposal to Bloomberg Philanthropies to think about what a city lab could look like. We didn't get the grant at that time, but the idea kept moving forward. Fast forward to 2013, where we tried some lightweight experiments, if you will. We sat down with the city administrator's office and said, we want to bring human-centered design into local government. This is what we're proposing. Is there a project you'd like us to work on? So we went and we asked kind of our equivalent of the COO what she thought would be an interesting place to start. And she said, well, there's this one process that, staff were just at an impasse on how to handle. And this would be really great if we could bring some fresh thinking into it. And that was special event permits. Yeah, so that was the first journey mapping session.
Just to sort of pause here for a second, I think one of the things that Karen highlighted was that, like many other cities, we were out of money. And out of time. And Kieran is the one that actually brought this quote to my attention. We're out of money, now it's time to think. So in sort of times of hardship, this is a Winston Churchill quote, call him a government innovator. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's see where we're at on this timeline. So in 2013, after we had done a few design workshops inside City Hall, we went back to the administration, shown them what we had done, and we started talking about a permanent space, something called the Civic Design Lab. We had Mylene had come on board, I think, in 2014, and we were looking at ways we could get additional resources. We participated in the NYU Gov Lab, which I think a couple people here have done. Has anybody here done the NYU Gov Lab? Ariel over there has. It's just a great way to meet people from around the country who are working on tough problems and ways to kind of co-create solutions. So we did that. And then we put together actually a budget proposal. The mayor won last November, and we worked on an innovation plan of projects that we could kind of push forward. This past summer, CDL was actually funded for the build out of the permanent space, which we will talk about in a little bit. Okay, so the question is, what is innovation?
And we'd love to hear from you as the audience. This is sort of the quintessential buzzword of the week, correct? Does anybody have any thoughts that they'd like to throw out to us about what innovation means to them?
Ariel's laughing, so I'm going to pick on her.
Well, we were joking that I think this was in the city partner onboarding stuff we're talking about, that like we all have innovation in our titles, but no one knows what it means. That's meaning nothing. And I think a lot of us are also trying to bring like real weight to that work and not just like people who get to work on cool special projects. And some of the work that's helping empower everyone who works every single day to create change.
Awesome. Juan, you had something over here?
Yeah, I like to see it as connecting previously unconnected pieces to create new approaches to problems, things that everything brought together with spring.
People in the second row over here.
Innovation is the solution to old problems with new thinking.
Oh, bam!
We planted her.
Love this. So innovation isn't about technology, right? It's about the ways we do, new ways of doing old things. That's exactly it. So it's broad. It is in a lot of people's titles these days, but it's about the way we go about thinking of our work that I think brings about the true innovation.
Right. This is Christine Schaff, who's actually in the back corner. This is a quote from her. Innovation is the thing at the heart of doing our business better. And so one of the things that's really, I think, unique about Oakland, we don't have an innovation office, unfortunately. However, this has been a forcing function for us to decentralize our innovation efforts and really look to the subject matter experts that are already existing in our organization to solve our own sort of organizational problems.
Right. And Karen and I used to talk about, it was a do-it-yourself network of innovators. It was like loosely cobbled together. It was like this bottoms-up approach inside City Hall. We were this subversive element trying to make change from within, just because we were also resource-strapped. All right. So where do we begin? Where does this journey begin? And so we've talked about kind of the journey mapping and the design workshops we did around this specific process. The reason also why the city administrator picked this was because special event permits in Oakland touch about 4 to 5 different departments. There is no coordinated effort. So if it feels painful from the inside, it also feels painful from the outside. So this was an area that was ripe for bringing people together from multiple different departments, brought them together for a journey mapping session. We didn't call it journey mapping. We called it Blind Men and the Elephant. We told the parable of how, blind men are asked to describe what an elephant looks like, and they're all feeling the different parts of that elephant. They're all describing what, the trunk or the body and whatnot. And it's a sum of those different viewpoints that leads you to what the elephant truly is. We think government works a lot like that. So we had done that, and then we had done the design charrette afterwards, where we actually got to break people into small groups of 4 to co-create. So we took people, no conference table style meetings. It was actually like intentional groups of 4 to 5 people where they were brainstorming and coming up with solutions to the problems they had identified. And we'd also fed them. That was very important. Breakfast, lunch, and homemade cookies.
Next slide. So another issue that we had was really discovering what public need is. So we had this tremendous interest by our city staff, our sort of internal organizational community, to really understand what is it that the public needs for us and how can we best deliver that. And one of the ways that we tried to do that was with our parking process and our parking pages. I have Christine, again, I'll highlight her. She's in the back. She participated in this very long sort of process of really bringing folks in from the community, bringing in some user testers, not a huge sample size of people, but really using our small conference room, making a makeshift testing center out of my office, and bringing in community members to sit in there, play around my computer, and really understand our parking pages, understand how they learned about parking, and really also selecting that as a service because it's one of our most heavily trafficked items and most heavily asked about items in city government. How exactly is it that I pay my parking ticket? Where do I park? How do I park? All of those sort of relevant questions. And really the outcome of that was not just the way in which we communicate and being able to edit and modify the way that we communicate about digital services, but it was also really understanding and bringing together staff, sort of bringing together these disparate pieces that I think was brought up earlier in order to innovate and find new solutions to old problems. The next challenge that we had is sort of changing the culture, right? So we have three main sort of administrative buildings. We have many buildings in city government, but we have these three administrative buildings here. If anybody's interested, you could walk down over to City Hall. It's a big white building.
The oldest public skyscraper in America.
Great fact. But right down the street is Frankagawa Plaza. And out of those three buildings, we have different types of workspaces, but oftentimes our departments are really relegated to those very specific workplaces. We have the 150 building, we have our 250 building, and then we have the white building that is City Hall, the oldest skyscraper in America.
Yes.
In America. And so one of the things that we really sought out to do was start to change the culture internally. And how do we do that? Karen mentioned food. I like to bribe people with chocolate. So how is it that we bring these disparate pieces together? We started off with having a web analytics club. So people wanted to know, how exactly is my content read online? What does that tell me about the day-to-day services that I implement? And how is this actually impacting my job like today? Not bringing folks together to sit in a traditional training, but how is it that I can take what I learn and apply it to my work today so that it impacts the community members that are coming in today, tomorrow, and henceforth.
So you're actually helping them do their work.
Absolutely.
Instead of adding to it.
Exactly. So I say stay for the chocolate, or come for the chocolate and stay for the data. And it's also really about building communities of practice. So it's not necessarily that we have community experts that come in and talk about analytics and talk about data, but it is also about building a community of practice internally where staff are talking to each other about their newly developed skills and expertise in this particular area. And what is the resolve? That means that they're able to, what's the outcome? They're able to edit their content. They're able to communicate. A really great example of this is actually our human resources department. When they started looking at their analytics for their web pages, they started to see and understand that one of their most heavily clicked on items wasn't necessarily job listings, wasn't necessarily benefits, it was contact us. So as soon as people got to the page, they were really looking at the phone number. And then we started talking to the folks that actually staffed their offices and understood, these are the things that folks are looking for, and how could we appropriately navigate people on the web? And so we changed a lot of their web navigation, we changed some of their content, but largely based on a lot of the work that we collectively did in these groups. So next, what exactly is a civic design lab?
It's everything. For us, I mean, Mylene has touched upon this. It started off with a journey through human-centered design, but it evolved into looking at web analytics and looking at content design and different ways that we listen to users' needs and how we co-create around those users' needs. And there's two sets of users, right? There are those inside City Hall and there are those outside of City Hall. And one of the things we learned early on in this journey was that if you solve for one set of pain points, you'll most likely solve for that second set. Like the internal pain and the external pain are actually very similar.
So when we talk about what a civic design lab, it's a working space that brings together process and people. And really at the fundamental onset, even though we're going to be talking about like a physical space, really where the civic design lab began was with the people that were interested in investing in it. It wasn't a space that Karen claimed that we sort of like stuck a flag in the middle of a space and said, this is the Civic Design Lab. We collectively brought people together over and over and over again. And so there was a shared ownership over this space that we're going to talk about.
And I'd like to add that as we started bringing more people together, more folks started joining in. You know, you started seeing people in public works, in the planning department, in these various areas who said, okay, I have this idea. I want to try this out. And so we started collecting folks inside City Hall. And I think that's another important part is that you'll find innovators everywhere.
So what's our process? So what exactly are we focusing on? So it's really these four main tenets. We're looking at user research. So one of the things I talked about earlier, our challenges was identifying public needs. We quickly learned that the conference room in my office was probably not going to be a sustainable or scalable space to do this for all city services. So where exactly was that going to happen? Web analytics, literally out of also conference rooms and empty and vacant spaces around City Hall. Human-centered design, I think Karen had talked about really starting that off in some of our public hearing rooms and then bringing people together there. And then content development, office spaces. sitting together, really identifying style guides, doing all of those types of things. They happened all over the city. The style guide. So Karen's whispering. So one of the things that I thought was this great process with Christine, I don't think I've talked about this with you, is when we started redesigning some of our content for parking. And it's this co-creation of the model. Again, it's co-creation with the community, co-creation with the staff, and then having really me serve as a facilitator of that process. So we're coming up with standards as part of this digital front door process, visual communication standards, but also these written and verbal standards in the way that we communicate our city services. So Christine was writing content on the web, and I'm sitting here actually writing our style guide while she's talking to me and dictating to me what she's frustrated with, what exactly is not working, why the heck my style guide doesn't cover this or that, or et cetera. And that's how we're actually iterating and making improvements upon that style guide. And so I think that that's the fundamental approach. We're not sitting here taking time, lecturing, or having tons of meetings around something. We're just sitting and doing it.
So I guess, in terms of like who we bring together, Mylene mentioned like subject matter experts, and those are people from the community and within City Hall. There's we had a building official, had 25 years of experience. Do you remember this? And he once famously said, as we were sitting around a table trying to draw out the problem, and we came to the solution, which is very far from where we had started. And he looked at the solution, which was super lightweight, super cost effective, and he goes, "There's only some problems that retirement will solve." You know who I'm talking about. So those are those subjects, who have that wisdom. And then there are the civic designers, the people in this room, folks that, we've relied upon. Like I mentioned, CCA, Code for America has been a huge partner in this work. Folks at IDEO.org as well have been partners. So it's bringing together this collective group of our community to co-create useful products and services that meet the user's needs.
So the place, I think this is probably what folks get really excited about. So we have been looking and searching for a home for quite some time because, as I mentioned, my office, these random spaces throughout City Hall have had their limitations. But
true, and the city attorney's office is famously closed off to the public. We had looked at a space, literally like a being John Malkovich floor. I mean, it's sandwiched between these two other floors inside City Hall. Nobody goes there. I didn't even know it existed until somebody pointed it out to me. You need a key card to get in there, and it's like this low hanging ceiling, and there is room there. There's very little daylight, but there's space. And our facilities guy was, "What about this place? This looks great." And we brought in a designer who's actually part of the Code for America family, and she looked at this, and she's like, I don't know if this is going to get what your guys are looking for, open, airy, innovative.
And I think that space was actually super representative of the state of the city in many ways. I think it had existed at one point as a lunchroom, a lactation
it's still
room.
A lunchroom.
And I think that there was locker facilities when people used to sort of use them. And it's a closed off part of City Hall, basically. And so we had explored this space originally.
Yeah.
But what we decided upon was the 9th floor of City Hall. And you can see here, most of these cubicles that are lying in the center space, there is one person in sort of this 9-space territory that's on City Hall left, but most of the items and objects that you kind of see around there are actually remnants of decades past, if that's a fair assessment. And really what we're talking about, the title of the presentation is taking fallow space into fertile ground. And that's really what we did. We were looking for places throughout City Hall that weren't necessarily being used, whether that's sort of people, whether that's places. And we identified this space as sort of a large space that really wasn't being utilized till its full potential. We have one person who's sitting in the middle who is our amazing city historian, and she is really the last vestige, I think, of the last decade of our work on that hall. She's the only person that's actually left sitting there. Government innovator, I mentioned Winston Churchill, I mentioned Christine Schaff. My colleague Harry Hamilton made this joke because we've engaged the entire floor of my colleagues to really start creating the space for this to happen. And he said, I think that thing has been sitting there for the past 10 years, and it was literally this mailing tube. That was sitting in the corner that probably hadn't moved for about a decade. And I think it's this great analogy to show that people are really, really looking for that kind of change, even if it has been that long, and that this sort of clearing of space and this bringing in new energy is really, really symbolic for a lot of our staff.
So this is the proposed floor plan. I mentioned that we brought in a designer to kind of take a look at this space, and she came up with this, which was really wonderful. We kind of walked her around the floor. Mylene and I had gone to the basement of City Hall where all of the furniture is stored, like the stuff that gets kind of thrown out. And so she was tagging, what we could use. And again, trying to be lightweight, trying to be cost effective was the idea here. And so she kind of came out with this, this design. And based on this design, we came up with a budget for the actual build out.
You can notice here, I mentioned that there are, 3 main buildings of City Hall. So traditionally, I haven't been to many city halls, admittedly, but at least in ours, and at least in sort of the other public facilities that I've been in, it's really spaces that are constructed for one-way conversation. You've got a podium, and then you have people that are sort of talking at each other and not working with each other. And I think that the goal here is to really build a space where people aren't just talking from a podium and sort of like giving resolution or recommendations, but they're actually collaboratively working. So you can see that the space design has all of those things in consideration. It is a work table. It's, sort of meeting rooms, collaboration spaces where people can sort of an open working space where people can come together.
And we actually also found these old phone booths. Do you remember? Because if people want to make a private phone call, we'll put one of these like old wooden phone booths on the floor, and they can take their call in there. So it's having some fun.
The big safe. So Christine's referring to the 9th floor. So everything was all encompassing in City Hall at one point, meaning all of our core services were there, the police department, the fire department, et cetera. And the 9th floor used to be the treasury. So there is an old safe on the floor of City Hall whose door neither opens all the way or shuts all the way. I don't know if anybody can come up with an idea for the safe.
Or the jail.
Or the jail that's on the 12th floor. We're taking suggestions. So this is really our build-out plan. I think the thing to emphasize here is it's how do you do this in your own city, right? It's not that we just decided or got some huge, blessing of like money or sort of endowment. It's really that we just decided to incrementally do it at a small scale, and we iterated along the way. Kieran's been here for a lot of this journey. But you can see here, we have phase 1. What does this really mean? There's a lot of September, October, November, but it's basically everybody getting together a few times a month, having more food, because food's essential, carving it out and cleaning it up and doing it. And then phase 2 is actually cleaning up the space, shampooing the carpet, all of these things that aren't, frankly, very sort of sexy parts of the process, but necessary. And that's what we're doing and bringing people together. And then finally, early next year is when we plan on opening up the space for the community and our internal staff to come together and use. So these are some of our people who are supporting the project. You can see there's Karen and myself here, but we'd be remiss to mention Jose Corona, who's out of the Office of the Mayor, and Karen, who's here in the front row. And then also a slew of people from Code for America, Jack, Colleen, and Francis. And then our newest Civic Design Fellow, who's really coming in and helping us bolster some content, Vanessa Mason, who's fantastic. And so it's these collection of people who are really informing this process and working with our staff as a team.
And I'd add, one of the things that we got to do in our journey was Francis, who helped start GDS in the UK. We had actually were in London at the same time, and she took me on a tour of the government office there, and I had never seen anything like it before. Just like, open, eerie, Post-it notes everywhere, analytics of like who was on the government website, what were they searching for, all of this information at your fingertips. And I said, this is how government should work at the local level. And it was really profound that she is now working on the Digital Front Door project as well, and is bringing that expertise.
So Karen, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about our needs, but we're still building out stuff. We are still looking for furniture, paint, technology, community members, and I said a small army. So if there's anybody else that wants to join the army, we're looking, and you, of course. These are some of the projects that we've been working on so far, really sort of like high-level overview. We talked about the special permitting process. Karen's really spearheaded Kiva Zip. We're also really looking at City Hall as a resource for fellows and fellowship and expertise, and looking for those people to come in and speak to how they can best do their digital services.
Yeah, and here's another way where we're kind of thinking of things a little bit differently. So you're used to having, City Hall fellows who come from outside government and come inside to learn a department's processes or work on a specific issue. We're really interested in doing a fellowship for internal employees, like ones who have been there, and taking them through a process where they can get, a new skill set or focus on a project that they've been wanting to do, but just haven't had the time or the space to do it. So we're talking around. If anybody in their own cities has done something like this, we'd love to talk to you, because it's really this idea of inside out, and maybe through that fellowship process, they can go get some insights from other sectors. Because being in government, and I did this for 7 years, you're kind of in your ivory tower a little bit, or your silo, and it's great to be able to break out. Beyond conferences like the summit.
Cool. So, the biggest result is sort of this convergence in this space on the 9th floor for us. It didn't start out with the place. We didn't say, oh, well, this is going to be a laboratory. We started with the people. So it's the people, the process, and the place overlapping. And with all of that in mind, I think what we want to do is we want to give you an opportunity to meet each other and go over really 3 fundamental questions that I think Karen and I have always asked ourselves in this process. 1, what is the problem that you're facing? What is your opposition, and who are your supporters? And it'd be great if you guys could get in groups of, 3 or 4, and talk about those 3 things: a fundamental government problem that you're facing, who your supporters are, and what your opposition is. And then we can come together and sort of share. Okay, I think we're ready to come back. Could turn around your chairs. We're just going to spend a few minutes debriefing.
Pick somebody to represent.
Would anybody in the back? Yeah. Would anybody like to start? Actually, before we start, how many government employees do we have in the room
It's a good
at
amount.
present? How many government employees do we have in the room? Oh, all right. We're right. We're well represented. Okay, cool. So you guys had an opportunity to talk about a problem statement, a problem that you guys are facing, some of your opposition and some of your supporters. So what we want to do is go around the room really briefly. I'll come around and bring a mic and really understand, okay, what is the issue that you're facing, and how are you bringing people together around it? This is the how piece. Anybody want to start? Anybody? Oh, I think somebody's been voluntold is the term.
So I'm actually not from a city. Well, I'm with the Bar Association of San Francisco, so we are from a city, but not a city. So, but we work a lot in partnership with certain of our city agencies. My particular area, though, is, it was just more broadly around innovation, so I'm not sure how specific this is going to be as a use case or problem statement, but Generally, trying to work on innovation projects with our very varied constituencies, from attorneys that belong to our association to the clients they serve, both large corporate clients and public service types of clients. We do legal aid and diversity training, so a lot of stuff. So very broad and diverse mission. And so basically, I think the idea is to innovate and transform. Of course, lawyers are inherently risk averse, so they are the people like the police. We run to lawyers when we're in trouble, so we rely on them to uphold the law and be very knowledgeable and ethical about our system of regulation. So it's kind of in their nature and in their mission. However, we know that the industry, like all of us here, we all need to transform. We're desperate. We have no money. So has to happen now with no resources. So, of course, the opposition is status quo. As human beings, we're all primed to resist, change. And I think that's definitely true, of course, in the constituency I serve. So the supporters, I kind of come to forums outside the profession a lot of times to look for kindred spirits. So this was a great place to come for that. So some of the support I got was actually stuff that I agree with 100%. I'm actually building proof of concepts around, so that shows like really great alignment here. Really employing best practices around change management, process mapping, reaching out to academia in the Stanford D School, which actually Margaret Hagan, whose panel was in this room right before this, I actually talked to her. I'm very familiar with her work doing legal process. So a lot of great tips and support.
Thank you.
Another example over here. Do you want to stand up? Do you want the mic? You can talk.
Perfect. Chris Angel with Hotfish Labs. I'm down in San Diego, and I'm actually on the consultant side, right? So I do innovation research and strategies all the time. But I also manage a large group of user experience people that are in-house that really want a way to engage with their community. And so the problem that they're having is they don't really understand how it works outside in the real world. So I get them into like Museum of Man or the local transit authority, and we do innovation work in that area to help people who are working for companies, for in-house corporations, to really understand how do you translate your usability skills, your design skills into a real life situation. A lot of the issues that we're seeing in San Diego related to this issue. I'm a company, I'm a local nonprofit. I don't have any resources that I use. But we've got these big ideas and we don't know if they're actually going to communicate when they get out. So Museum of Man, for example, they're doing a new exhibit on cannibalism. Really deep, hard topic to put into words. And we came in and we prototyped their exhibits, and I think we had 60 people working on 10 different ideas. At the end of it, we were able to narrow down to the key insights for each of those interactions and help them understand how best to communicate these ideas, how best to make sure that those ideas come across to the kids all the way to adults, and make it fun to interact with. From the business side, it's visibility into what are the needs, how do I get in touch, how do I help. It's also making sure that there are pathways that are
Sure, feedback loops are very important to this work as well. Anybody else? Yes.
We're all three city employees, and I think the one thread that we had in common was, maybe I'm just making this up, but it seemed like trying to work with our colleagues who are submitting content for the web or who need things or we're working with, and they may never have heard of user-centered design, they may know nothing about any of these concepts that we're talking about, and how do you work even internally on these concepts that the user or the customer or the resident is the most important, when politics often drive your decisions, and who, how a thing is funded, or who in the hierarchy is higher up, that means their program gets listed at the top of the website. How do you work with your colleagues to get them to come on board with some of these concepts that we've been talking about?
Has there anything?
Opponents, and I love what you said, the opponents are the status quo, okay? And the supporters are those who innovate and who want to think that way, and the problem solvers, someone else said that before. So how do we get more problem solvers? How do we give people a space to be able to problem solve and not be in my office or in the regular conference room or something where there's a freedom, there's open walls to, no barriers to, do it, like you said, you come to other conferences outside your immediate industry to get those ideas to spur it on.
This is where data can also help you, right, and show kind of
food.
and food.
And just to comment on that, one of the things that we're doing to try to get it away from hierarchy and politics making decisions, or turf and territory, is to start coming up with centrally agreed upon values and principles. And so, for example, we're going to pick a content management system not based on what the city's already invested millions of dollars into, but let's look at what are the user needs, internal and external, what are the values we're going to test around, and we're going to test, like, how fast can city staff post content, how fast can someone find their way to pay their parking ticket, and test the content management systems along those agreed upon values. And then we'll pick, this is what I'm hoping, I'll report to you next year whether this happened, but then we make our choices based on values rather than other kinds of more bureaucratic structures.
Thank you. All right. Well, this has been a really, really exciting kind of session for us personally, because it's been a journey, but we'd like to also hear from you guys too as to what you might have going on in your city on the innovation front, whether it's with people, process, place. So we'd love to hear. I know New York has a lot of exciting things going on, Long Beach, Los Angeles, a lot of folks in this room. So if anybody wanted to take a couple minutes to share out, that'd be great.
My name's Daniel Honker. I'm with the City of Austin. So our innovation office, which I'm a part of, has been around for a little over a year. And I'm really excited to talk with you guys more because I think we're actually on a very similar timeline for opening up an innovation space. Cool. So ours will be at some point this fall. And right now we've just been using card tables and old rickety chairs and things like that. So there's kind of there's a funk to that, right? Yeah. That I enjoy. But I think we have some similarities with the approach that we're taking, but one challenge that we're running into is that our innovation office was set up a little over a year ago, but we really have not been given any executive or political direction. Now that's an opportunity, right? Because we get to determine what our strategy is. We get to go and see what the needs are and prioritize based on that, and that's good. But we're coming into areas where there are dire needs for help, and we are not able to come in with any type of a mandate or executive top-level support, and that's a difficult thing that we're dealing with right now. Right. But I'm eager to talk with you guys some more after the session.
Absolutely.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, we have one in the back.
In San Francisco, we started something a couple years ago, totally informally. Can you hear me all right? Okay. Called the Public Engagement Network. And what that is a monthly gathering of public information and public affairs and public outreach and communications people within the city from 15 different departments. And we just meet once a month to, it started as just get to know each other. Oh, you're the person who manages social media. Oh, you're the person over there that I've talked to via email. And so it was just a great networking opportunity for all the people doing public outreach. And it's grown into a really great forum for us to share resources and tools and information and best practices. So it's sort of like an innovation lab. Without that being in anyone's title, it's just something that we started, and it has become so helpful for everyone because this forum never existed. Everyone's in their little silo doing their own little things, and we discovered that there was so much that we had in common, and there was such a need for this network of folks doing that same job across all different departments. And as a result, we've had different folks from other areas of the city come talk to us and present about Agile and present about what enterprise services the city had that we didn't even know about. So it's just been a great tool, and it would be nice to formalize that and actually to have it be part of someone's job instead of this accidental side project that we're sort of doing under the radar.
Well, bring it into CDL. Right. That's a great story.
Hi, I'm Kate. I'm with the City of West Hollywood. We have an innovation department. It's 2 of us. But we have a cross-departmental, what we call the Innovation Catalyst Group. We're a group of people from city manager's department, communications, finance, and IT, and planning. And we get together every 2 weeks. We don't have a dedicated space, just a meeting room, and meet for about an hour, hour and a half every 2 weeks to talk about new initiatives, new projects, and just keep each other in the loop. The Innovations Department undertook a directive from the council to study ways that we can be more innovative across all of our departments. And the council directed us to use a team of outsiders to look at City Hall and find out what we could be doing more innovative. Unfortunately, once we brought that report to the directors of the departments, they were furious that they were not included in this outside process. But that was a directive from council and from our mayor. So we're working, that's our challenge now, is figuring out how to implement these 40 initiatives with about 100 directives in our innovations annual report. With the support of the departments, even though they were not included in the study process. Well, I came on about 2 months ago to implement the report, so I'm here figuring out how to do that. So it's an interesting process. So we have resources. We're lucky. We're a very small city with a lot of hotel and advertising revenue. We don't have departmental support, so that's our challenge.
Incredible. It's an incredible story.
So I think we can take one more.
Sure.
Hi, my name is Leila Campos, and I'm representing the city of Los Angeles. So our city has an innovation team, and it's housed in the mayor's office. And so there's also an innovation fund, which departments are encouraged to apply to. And I think as a whole, the city of Los Angeles encourages the departments to innovate. So we do have some sort of autonomy in that regard. And if you can apply for the fund and get the fund, great. And there's the lines of communication with the mayor's office and their innovation team are open. For me, today with your session, I think one of the things I'm taking away is just the idea of a space to be innovative, because I am responsible for a regional team, and I'm thinking I'm going to turn my conference room / lunchroom into an innovation space. For us in Los Angeles, I mean, for me, it would be key to involve members of the public. We work with the 96 neighborhood councils. We're responsible to oversee the neighborhood council system. So it would be really difficult to do any thinking outside the box without their input and participation. So thank you.
That's great. We're going to take one more comment because I know your hand has been up.
I just want to share a resource to back up from New York City. One resource for anyone thinking about innovation project, the LabWorks network, which is run out of Nesta and has a connection to labs worldwide. So it's exciting to see this sort of thing.
The name again?
It's the LabWorks network, and Nesta, which is a UK organization, sort of semi-private, coordinates it, and there's dozens of them around the world.
Awesome. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming. I do want to recognize my colleagues that are in the room who contribute to this fabulous work every day. There's Anna here, who's in the front, Christine in the back, Felicia Verdon, who are fantastic. And then finally, I want to thank all of you for being innovators and pioneers in your own communities.
Thanks for sharing.
Mm-hmm.